CPL, CAC, ROAS. Have you ever heard me use those acronyms? On today's episode, I'm going to teach you how I use those to figure out if my home show has been a success or not. Enjoy.
How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. My name is Max, I'm your host. Welcome to you if you're in YouTube land. I appreciate you dropping by. Again, I'm going to run through some really good stuff today and hopefully you can tuck it under your arm and go build that kick-ass business. But before we get started, as usual, like and subscribe. If you've got any comments, if you're watching on YouTube, drop them below. We'll get back to you ASAP. If you've got any queries around, anything to do with the construction business, email me, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com. If you want to have a chat with me about coaching for contractors or builders, get across to the elitebusinessadvisory.com website. Hit the book a consultation for your complimentary coaching session. No strings attached. Let's just chat about you and your business. Okay, also don't forget Business for Builders. VIP, it's a private group on Facebook. Answer the 3 questions to make sure that really the only people getting into that group, and I do that with my thumbs, is the right type of builders that need to be chatting with each other about, best practices and maybe any question and answer that can go on there. So that's about the long and the short. Let's get after it today. Right, behind me there, marketing and profit. It's called the Home Show episode because on the weekend we had a home show here in Vernon, and it's the fall home show actually. So it's autumn if you're an Aussie or a Kiwi, and it's not a bad show. It's a little bit softer than the spring home show that we had earlier on this year, but nonetheless not too bad. And I thought what would be really relevant is to help the audience understand the connection between marketing and your profit margins. And sometimes you might ask yourself, well, should I do a home show? Now, I think the answer to that question is yes. But having sat down with an agency a month ago and they were spruiking about how they want to get me all these leads, I said, guys, there will be a supply constraint. Like, for me to get to those leads is going to mean that I'm going to outrun my supply line. So before we go and say, let's sign up for a home show, we really need to take one step back and go, if I got 15 leads this weekend, what am I going to do to handle those? And that would be a separate episode. But what I want to really talk about this episode is just about some of the numbers that we did whilst they're really fresh in my mind. And just help you get some context around maybe the investment required to do a home show, and then what are the outcomes. So we never do something just for shits and giggles, right? We're going to do something because we've got a desired outcome. If you're a good business person, that's called strategic planning, applying limited resources to unlimited opportunity. You can do all kinds of things with your marketing spend, but unfortunately, you've probably got a limited amount to spend on marketing. So we've got to know in advance, what are we looking for? What are we trying to put together? Now, we've got enough data to know that that home shows work well for us. Now, we've got to make sure that our system, here I go again, talking about systems, ironically, we've got to make sure our home show system is all buttoned up, okay? So, behind me on my right-hand side here, there's factors which determine whether my marketing overall is going well, but we can also use these formulas to calculate very singularly, such as a home show, as to whether or not it was something that was worth doing. So let me get started by talking about CPL. Now, ironically, I sat down with this agency a month ago, and this is when I knew that they weren't the right people for me, because I asked them what's CPL, what's CAC, and what's ROAS. Now, if you're in the marketing world, you would think that you would know that, but neither of the agents or neither of the representatives did, which I thought, how is it possible that a general contractor can outmaneuver and outsmart a marketing agent? Well, that's exactly what happened. So I knew at that point what they were trying to do is just sell me, programmatic banners and pop-ups and all the other bullshit that goes with their website. And they say that, there's plenty of, it was too broad. And if they had come to me and said, look, we've got 10 builders and this is their CAC and this is their CPL and this is their ROAS, it would actually be a slam dunk. It would be an easy decision for me to make. Now, understand this, just a side note, if confusion in the minds of your clients is going to restrict them or is going to inhibit their decision-making process. When everything is clearly laid out, your ability to close deals increases. So that means you, as the operator, as the lead dog, you must be organized in your process. If people don't have trust in you, they don't have confidence in you, they're not going to follow you. Okay, so it's going to make you harder to do a deal. So that's a bit of a takeaway. Right. So when we're talking about the home show, a couple of things that we need to just probably sort out is that we basically got $3,000, it cost us about $3,000 for the show, and we got about 20 leads. Now, that is a little bit soft, but why, the average lead value was probably worth over 100 grand. So when you've got 20 leads at that, it was probably around the 1.1 to $1.5 million mark as far as what I would call a forecast build value. So this is why lead numbers are important, because they help me with my CPL. But also I need to make sure that I'm not just getting 50 leads that are worth $1,000 a piece. I've got to make sure that the forecast build values are up as well, because when we start to extrapolate the data out, if I'm calculating 20% as a conversion rate, okay, those 20 leads at $5,000 a piece is not going to create enough revenue, therefore not enough gross profit in my business, and certainly no net margin to be able to sustain my business. So we don't look at one or the other. And I had to explain this to this agency. I said, it's not just numbers of leads for the reasons outlined above. I said, it's got to be the preferred client profile. That's another quality that we've got to look at in our marketing stance as well. So these are the kinds of things that need to be going around your brain like they go around my brain when I'm talking to somebody, whether it's social media, whether it's Google Ads, or whether it's some other, advertising platform online. Yeah, even advertising in the newspaper, I guess, if that's what you still do. So basically what we've got is we've got formulas to calculate CPL and CAC and ROAS, and we're going to use these numbers here. So CPL is basically our ad spend divided by numbers of leads. Okay, so that's a pretty easy one. And then the CAC is ad spend divided by, numbers of jobs. Right, I just don't want to lead you up the garden path here, because I am going kind of on the record. And then your return on advertising spend. Now, there's two ways you can look at your ROAS, okay? Return on advertising spend. For every dollar that you spend on advertising, there's two ways. You can go, for every dollar we spend on advertising, it creates X amount of dollars of revenue. And then the other one is, for every dollar of advertising spend, it creates X amount of dollars of gross profit. So if your profit margins are kind of all over the place as far as percentages go, that second one's going to be a little bit tricky. So you might just stay at the return on advertising spend as far as revenue goes. So to work out ROAS here, it's the dollars. What have I written here? Value, right? Dollar value of total contracts. Dollar value of total contracts. And then if you wanted to get involved, what you would have, the second variation is dollar value of profit. Now, you would probably work this on a gross profit. So if you're marking up by 33%, you're creating a 25% margin. I tend to sort of work on that gross profit margin. So let's put here, let's get rid of that. Gross profit margin. Okay, because that will then tell me that if I sign $100,000 worth of work and I'm making 25% margin, then there's $25,000 worth of gross profit margin in there that I can then use to run my business, okay? And now we use that as a percentage to calculate. So, right, so let's say, for example, we had, I might chuck this in as a different color. I'll go back to purple to make sure that you can see it. So let's say, e.g., we had $3,000 worth of advertising spend, because let's face it, home shows, that will come out of the marketing budget. And if we divide that by 20 leads, okay, that equals about $150 per lead. Okay, $150 per lead. And then if we do this same math, or the same type of math here, 3,000. Now out of that, so what we're saying is out of 20 jobs with a, let's call it, I'm going to try and write this in red. We're going to use a 20% conversion rate. So what that means is out of 20 leads, we're going to basically work on 4 jobs. So we divide that by 4, right? And that equals out $750 per job. So it's cost us $750 to get 4 jobs. Now, the next thing that we want to think about is what would be, so when we get down to ROAS and we start talking about the volume, the value of total projects versus the ad spend, now what we do is we spin it the other way. So the dollar value of total cost, I didn't finish off that formula for you guys, divided by ad spend. Right. So now we go with the example, which is 300,000. Okay, so whatever so I'm using $75,000. I'm using 75K as my average contract value. I need to throw in a joke about here because I reckon everyone's friggin' nodding off. If you're like me, this kind of stuff, if it isn't something, and certainly if you're listening to this on podcast, you're going to be cross-eyed. So it's going to probably pay you to get across to YouTube and just check it out, Business for Builders. Now, if it's not relevant to you, you probably, see, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So you might look at this and go, I freaking haven't got time for that shit. See? So you're not ready, okay? When we talk about successful businesses, and then we talk about the failure rate being 50%, unfortunately, it's our own nonchalance and ignorance, and Alex Hormozy talks about paying the ignorance tax, okay? So we've got to be careful that we don't think, and this is very Aussie, maybe Kiwi as well, she'll be right, mate. It'll take care of itself. It'll figure itself out. It'll be fine. Unfortunately, what I know in the building game, both from personal experience, but also now having been a business coach for builders and contractors across the world, I know that it doesn't just happen by accident. The more you learn, the more you earn, okay? And so understanding, because what you're trying to do is not just throw money at the wall willy-nilly to marketing and go, well, I think that's what everyone else does, so I'll just do the same. What you want to, remember we go back to the start, this is strategic planning around marketing. Specifically 1 month and 1 vertical. So we're saying the home show, this was our advertising spend for the month of October in 2025. Okay, and so we're applying our limited marketing resource to an unlimited bunch of options and opportunities as far as marketing goes, but this is what we've chosen right here and now. So this is why it's important that if you want to grow a business, your profit is going to be tied to your marketing. Furthermore, or more specifically, your profit is going to be tied to how good your marketing is. And sometimes not just the spend, sometimes your messaging is ordinary. Sometimes there's too much right hook, not enough organic. Sometimes there's too much organic and there's no call to action. So it's about knowing. It's why one of the first things I did to start a franchise brand in this country was to spend hundreds of hours watching Gary Vaynerchuk and start to understand the concept that even though I'm a builder, even though I'm in construction, even though I was in franchising, we are a media company first, okay? So guys and gals, you've got to start transitioning your mind, changing your mindset. If you continue to do the same thing that you did last week, next week, you're going to get the same result. It doesn't just change by accident. And so this is where we circle back to the education. You've got to change your brain. You've got to enlarge your capacity. You've got to educate yourself. You've got to start to realize that there's dynamics within the business that are very subtle, that aren't obvious, that not everybody does, that makes it difficult to be able to figure out, well, what's the right way forward? We've all been trained by Red Seal, journeyman, experienced, let's say, carpenters. And they were trained by journeyman Red Seal experienced carpenters. And again, the same the generation before. And what happens is what gets passed down is all these craftsmanship skills, which is great. But nowhere in that lineage does anybody stop the curse and go, guys, you're good at what you do, but your businesses fail. And this is what I'm talking about. So today we're just talking about the marketing metrics. We're not talking about all of the activity key metrics within your business. And if you're an EBA client of mine or a past client of mine, you know what I'm talking about. Right, so let's get back on track here. So we've got the value of the total. So when I'm saying out of the 20 leads, I've got a conversion rate of 20%. That means, and my average contract value in there is going to be about 75 grand. Therefore, we've got about $300,000 worth of work. So we've got 300K. And then I basically divide that by my advertising spend of $3,000. And all the smart kids who are watching will tell me that's $100 in revenue. Okay, so for every dollar that I spend in marketing, it produced $100 in revenue, right? So if I multiplied 3,000 by 100, that would give me 300,000. Okay, so did you catch that? So if we go one step further and you want to get a little bit more granular, with it, we can go. So if we've got $300,000 worth of work, and my margin is say 25% of that, all the smart kids in the room will tell me that that's worth 75,000 gross margin. Okay, so what I have now is I change that up, and I now move the 300,000, and I go down here. If I'm going to do an example for you, I'm going to take 75,000, and I'm going to divide that by $3,000 is the ad spend, and that equals $25. That's in margin. Okay, so what you're saying now is that we spend $1, we get $100 in revenue, we spend the same dollar, and it creates a $25 margin. So everything has to be tied. There's no guarantees. Now I'll tell you why. It's an interesting observation, but when I'm walking around, I don't spend a lot of time walking around the home show, and Don, we should put a flash up of the home show stand or a little quick video in between this on YouTube, just to show you what it is that my understanding of what a good booth looks like. It's a mixture of kind of a relaxed homely type atmosphere, and then there's the business end, and of course we've got a promotion, and we had a large gift that we gave away that was probably worth over $300. And so, then it comes back into, I don't know how many times people go, keep talking, I love to hear your accent, which is completely weird, by the way, but that's what the Canadians tend to sort of give me the feedback on. So there's a competitive advantage just in that. But I am a little bit of a likable fella, and I don't mind to chat. And, you've got to have the depth. And this is what I guess when I'm out there doing what I do, I'm always looking for the competitive advantage. And it's funny because I'll have a client that'll come up to me, and he or she will be carrying a brochure from another competitor at the show. And I know that I've got to go above and beyond, because I know that they've had a conversation with an individual down there, and I know what his capabilities are. And so when I'm talking to clients, I've got to act in the best interest. I can't get commission breath. So one client, the one client I was chatting with in this regard, and I think for the most part we've got this squared away. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, go now. Good-o. So what this client wanted to do, they bought a home, 14 years ago or something. They said it was valued at $280. Home's there now, probably only worth $500,000. And what they were talking to me about was to do certain projects. And this whole thing, they wanted to move out and run their business, from an Airbnb while we did the job. And I said, just time out for a second. Remember, they've got the brochure of this other competitor in the hand. So here's where I start to create a point of difference. Now I'm speculating a little bit. However, I bet you I'm pretty accurate in the fact that I'm going above and beyond for the client. I'm not just trying to close a deal, because the deal was never going to work. If I did those numbers on the board and we run through these numbers with the client, The work they wanted to do was going to cost them maybe 600-700 grand. And then my next question was, okay, you've got this home that is worth 500,000. If we go and spend another 600,000 or 700,000, and you run that 1.1 to 1.2, what are they selling for today? And sheepishly, they said to me, probably around the 700, 750. And I said immediately, well, then that's a deal breaker. And, so I didn't want to go and break their hearts and then not have a solution. I said, however, we know that property will double its value on average, depending on, some it's better, some it's worse, every 7 years or so. So, and I said, if you're going to prioritize your spend, what I would encourage you to do, and it was a 1960s home. So in Canada here, the concreting in 1960 certainly wasn't up to code, what the code is today. So I said, straight away, we're going to have to excavate around the home and reinstate or reestablish the foundation. I said, that's the first thing you've got to do. You've got to get what they call in Canada here, and all the guys that are in North America get this, but the envelope has got to be good. The basement concrete, the siding and the roof, and of course the windows and doors. So we've got at the exterior. So we've got to get that sorted out. So I said to them, look, you might have to compartmentalize your project because it's not your forever home, but it is going to be your home probably for the next 5 to 10 years. And they said, yeah. I said, okay then. So what I would concentrate on is foundations first, roof second, siding and windows or cladding and windows third. And then fourth, we can go on the inside. Now, it wasn't what they wanted to hear, but there was definitely an element of leadership, authority. There was some confidence because all of a sudden you can see the lights come on and they're getting the aha moment. So what I've developed for them is a bit of a strategy. So rather than just turfing it out as a no-go, what we would probably do is find ourselves over the next couple of years doing business with that client. Well, hopefully we would do business with that client. And so this is why just the numbers alone are not good enough. If you are in the same show as me, you've got your hands full. Because I know what I'm doing, okay? And I'm old and washed up. So all you 25-year-old whippersnappers who want to build a kick-ass business, there's some things you're going to have to learn, and usually that takes time because we don't change in a heartbeat. We make the decision to change, but then it's the choices that you make along the way that ends up building that change into position. Got it? Okay, so we all make a decision, Let's say I made a decision to lose weight. Great, good decision, Max, attaboy. Well, now I've got to make choices every day as to how much exercise I do and what food I eat and what do I drink. Those sorts of things. Just by the way, I'm down 18 pounds, just for the record. So it's working, but it's slow, and I'm doing it in that way so it's controlled and it's palatable and it's doable. I would say the same for you with your learning curve. Don't go and listen to 200 and wherever we're up to, 259 episodes and go, if I can listen to all that this weekend, I'll be a gangster. I think you'll be a little more educated, that's for sure, but you're not going to be a gangster. It's going to take a while because what you've got to convert all of that head knowledge, so that you've got to go through those 4 stages, because there's guys, I can't believe it, there's guys that after I've run a home show now for years, I don't want them to copy me, of course I don't, but if they had half a brain, they probably would, and they probably should. It's like, if they're not happy with their results, why do they keep doing the same thing? I'm very happy with the interaction and the lead gen and the feedback that I get from the organizer, from the radio station, from clients, or prospective clients that walk past our booth. They really enjoy it. They find it's refreshing. So I'm basing my activity on market feedback because my opinion doesn't rate. Your opinion doesn't rate. The marketplace, you've got to be listening to the marketplace. So if you're ignorant and you think you know it all and you're the smartest guy or gal in the room, what you're currently doing is you're operating unconsciously incompetent. You're cocking it up and you don't even know. Now, what you want to do is graduate through the next 3 or 4 levels where you go from being unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent. You know you're doing it wrong and you're trying to change things, but you know you haven't got it right. Now you're on your way. Then over time, as you polish it up and you make changes and you educate more, you move into the world of being consciously competent. Now you're forcing yourself to do the right things, but it's a very conscious effort to make sure everything's... And this happens in the world of sales because you're going, I'm trying to say the right things and follow the script. And then you move into a realm where you have done it for so long, over and over and over again, and you're so well versed in doing the right things, it becomes unconsciously competent. And now you're executing at the highest level. And you know, I've got so much to learn, but I'm probably up there with a lot of the guys that do it pretty well and just do it naturally. Clients never feel like I'm trying to sell them, you know. And just on that, guys, something we created on the fly, I created on the fly because there was clients that were coming in. Okay, and here's another point. This unconsciously came to me while I'm literally in the middle of a conversation with a client at the home show, and I sensed that it was a smaller job, which traditionally definitely doesn't suit. The preferred client profile human was there. It was the right age bracket. However, the type of job that we wanted, it wasn't really there. And at that moment in time, I thought, you know what? And I started to say this to clients. I said this to more than 2 clients at the home show. I said, tell you what, here's what we're going to do. And guys, if you're looking for a number, here's a couple of numbers for you. I'm not saying you should do this. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not even saying it's best practice. I'm not saying that it's industry standard. I'm just saying this is what I'm throwing out there. And I said to these clients, I said, look, I tell you what, you know, you're the type of people that we want to work with. However, this job is definitely a lot smaller. Now, just so you know, folks, on the table in front of me, I've got the engineering. I would get Dom to throw them to me, but he'll probably get in the way of his own camera. Right, so this is what I had laid out in front of me. So these are the full plans of this large renovation that we're doing. So these are actually superseded plans now, but I've got the house plans and I've got the engineering, okay? So these are sitting on the desk. So when people look at those, they go, oh, this is probably not the job for you guys, okay? And I go, look, you're probably right. We're definitely focused on serving clientele at the highest level. However, this is what I'm prepared to do for you today. Like, if you're prepared to do it on time and materials. I said, my carpenters, and I point to Jed, he's my business partner, and then we've got Jacob, both Red Seal journeyman carpenters, do great work, working on this place, ripping roofs off and reframing, etc. I said, those guys are $65 an hour plus tax. And if we involve any materials or third-party contractors through us, it's going to be cost plus 20%. Now, the reason I would do that for you today, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, is because at the end of the day, all I'm going to want to do is to make you happy. I'm not going to make enough money to set the world on fire, but if I could get if I can create a fan, somebody that had loved the experience, you might know someone who might spend $1 million with me. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to polish something into something that might convert down the track. And this is why, if you have to make a paycheck, the way that you come across is going to be different from me because I'm playing the long game. Too many guys will have a bit of a windfall in business. They'll go and buy dumb shit. They'll go and run too top heavy. They don't know. They're not following their numbers. They're not maybe spending enough on marketing. And then what they need to do is they literally need to make this deal happen and get that cash deposit so they can pay for the bad money, the bills that are outstanding for 90 days or 120 days. And it's so refreshing when I'm being sold to where you just feel like, Max, it's your decision to make. Now, there's always prompts that go in there. You've got to go to a close mode at some stage. But the home show is not the place to go to the close stage. I mean, if you're selling shit which is fully transactional, go to the close. Here's the demonstration. There was a guy across the way selling heaters. It was a bit cool. We're in the hockey rink, so it's a bit cool. People are warming their hands up. He's selling them for $450 and I watch people walking past with them under their arms, happy days. So, you know, sometimes there's a time where you can demonstrate and sell, move to close, and get the deal done. Fine. But construction, guys and gals, this job here, it took me 9 months. It takes the gestation period for a construction deal. The higher you go, the longer the sales cycle. You know, if it's just a $10,000 whatever or $25,000 bathroom, at the end of the day, that can be a quick close. You can close that within a couple of weeks or a month if the client's ready to go. So, you know, it's really just about not just knowing your numbers, although that's important. This kind of breakdown will help you. So look, you could replace this with home show episode to Google, or you could replace it to social media or a billboard if you thought that was worth spending the money on. You know, it's just like, you've got to have the understanding. Just so, side note, if you do a billboard, put some sort of special code on the like promotion code on the billboard, so you know that when leads come in, they're quoting that promo code for the billboard. That means you can then calculate, you know, what your cost per lead is, what your CAC and what your ROAS is, all right? So all those kinds of things. If you've got any questions about marketing, that'll do me. I've been here for 30 minutes now, so let's let you go. Hope that helps. If you've got any questions, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com. If you want, spend some time with me as it relates to a complimentary coaching session. I'm happy to sit with you for 30 minutes, talk about your business, talk about what's going on, what you're good at, what you're not so good at, what your concerns, what can I demystify, and I'm going to try and do it all in 30 minutes. It was always a challenge for me. But get across elitebusinessadvisory.com, hit the book a consultation, okay, and pick a spot. If there's no room in the calendar, email me and tell me what time zone you're in, tell me what time of day suits you, and I'll try and accommodate. I'll do my best to accommodate your preference. But just keep in mind, guys, any of these estimations and forecasts and predictions, you know, every operator, every business, every marketplace is different. So this is not guaranteed. This is not, by no means a guarantee, but it's something, it gives you food for thought. So you can start putting your own numbers in there, looking at your own metrics, and making sure that you at least get started tracking the data. What you don't measure, you can't manage. What you don't measure, you can't improve, okay? Get across Business for Builders VIP on Facebook. And other than that, go build that kick-ass business of yours, and I will see you on the next episode. Cheers.